The Jews are not the indigenous people of the land of Israel, and they were not the first people here. That is a fact that can't be denied. So, who are the indigenous people of the land of Israel? Is it the Palestinians? Well, no. The native people who walked the land of Israel about 1.5 million years ago lived south of the Sea of Galilee. We don't know much about them because they died 1.5 million years ago. But what we do know is that even posing the question, who are the indigenous people of the land of Israel, demonstrates a deep misunderstanding of the history of the Middle East. The idea of indigenous people may be true of places like the Americas and Australia, where native people had lived for thousands of years before the European arrived in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. This is not the case in the Middle East. And to just apply what you know of your own history to the rest of the world is a bit, well, ignorant. No offense. The land of Israel is and always was a corridor that many different peoples and empires passed along. Here is a quick history lesson. Before the State of Israel, there was the British Mandate. Before that, the Ottomans. Before them, the Mamluks, the Crusaders, the Muslim Caliphate, the Byzantine Empire, the Roman Empire, the Hashmonaean Jewish dynasty, the Greek, the Persians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Kingdom of Israel, the Canaanites, the Egyptians, the ancient empires of Mesopotamia. People were living here in the Chalcolithic age and the Neolithic age. So please, tell me who are the indigenous people are. It is very simple. You can't. But, and this is a very big but, the group of people who had the strongest connection to this piece of land is the Jews. Very few people have such a strong and long-lasting connection to a piece of land as the Jews do to this one. Maybe the Chinese to China or the Japanese to Japan. But you won't find many more examples. It starts with a name. We are called Jews because this area is called Judea. Self-explanatory. We are from here. The Arabs, by the way, are from Arabia, the area of Saudi Arabia. The Jewish religion even has a set of religious rules which date back thousands of years that apply only to the land of Israel. The first fruits are brought as an offering to the temple. The edges of the fields are not harvested and left for the poor. And every 7 years, the fields are given time to rest and all the crops are left for the poor. Now, I know that some pro-Palestinians would say that just because the Jews believe that God gave them the land, that doesn't mean the Jews can steal the land belonging to the Palestinians. First, please watch my videos about stealing land and genocide. The links are below. And second, whether you believe in God or not, whether you adhere to Judaism or Islam or Christianity, or whether you believe in nothing at all, none of that is relevant. What matters are the facts. Jerusalem was the capital of the Jews as far back as 3,000 years ago. That is a fact. The center of Jewish life, the temples, stood on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That is a fact. The Jews have always prayed towards Jerusalem. That is a fact. At every Jewish wedding over thousands of years, we have always mentioned Jerusalem. That is a fact. And only the Jews have this connection to Jerusalem and the land of Israel. The Muslims may turn their backs to Jerusalem when they pray towards Mecca, but Jews will never turn their back on Jerusalem. Jerusalem was never the capital of a Muslim empire, and Jerusalem was often a neglected city under Muslim rule. When was Jerusalem ever important to the Muslims? When they fought the Crusaders, the Christians, and now that they are fighting the Jews. Jerusalem has mostly been important to the Muslims when they have had to compete with another religion. Nothing makes a place holier than competition with another religion. And that is exactly why Jerusalem is important to the Muslims. I'm now going to say something very basic that is going to blow your mind. Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Quran. So if Jerusalem doesn't even get a mention, how did Jerusalem become such a holy place for the Muslims? Chapter 17 of the Quran talks about the night journey of Muhammad, and it says that he ascended to heaven from the furthest mosque, Al-Aqsa. It doesn't mention a specific location, and many Muslim scholars have suggested other locations. Some say that it is not an actual place, but just a metaphor. When the Muslims colonized the land of Israel in the 7th century and conquered Jerusalem, they went to the site where the temple of the Jews stood, the Temple Mount, and said, "Where the Jews had their temple, we will turn it into a place where Muhammad ascended to heaven, and the Jews will not be able to pray on their holiest site anymore." Like I said before, nothing makes a place holier than competition with another religion. I know that some of the political left, which is not religious, will comment, "This is all stupid religious stuff. Everyone thinks that only their God is the right one." I mean, you can think whatever you want about God and religion. It is none of my business. But here I'm talking about history. Muslims, on the other hand, don't usually say that religion is stupid because they live in an extremely religious society. And talking that way against Islam in Muslim countries will result in your death. By the way, if you are looking for illogical things in this video, how about this? The link between the God-hating, gay-loving left and the gay-hating, God-loving Muslims. Anyway, in the Muslim world, since the 1980s, a new trend has been seeking to deny the fact that there was ever been a Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Because Muslim society is not really pro-democracy or pro-freedom of speech, especially when it comes to talking about religion, this denial of the existence of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem spreads like wildfire. I have two comments to make about it. The fact that the Jewish temple stood where the Dome of the Rock stands today was a fact that the Muslims had accepted for hundreds of years. In the 1960s, the Waqf itself, that is, the Muslim authorities themselves, even wrote as much. For hundreds of years, this was an accepted and established fact. But once Israel liberated the old city, the Muslims started to say, "No, you never had a temple here." The second thing to point out is the name of the area of the Temple Mount in Arabic, Beit el-Maqdis. What is the name of the temple in Hebrew? Beit HaMikdash. It is the same word, Beit HaMikdash and Beit el-Maqdis. So the Arab name for this part of Jerusalem is the temple. If you call a place the temple for hundreds of years and say that there was a Jewish temple, it might actually mean that there was a temple there. And I'm not even going into all the archaeological evidence and the Jewish and Christian sources. I'm looking at this purely from a Muslim point of view. So not only is the connection of the Jews to the land of Israel strong, but the connection of the Muslims and the Christians to the land of Israel is entirely based on that Jewish connection. This is an extremely important point that needs to be made. It is not as if a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian just met up in Jerusalem and the Jews said, "Hey, this place is important to me." And then the Muslim and the Christian said, "It is important to us as well." No, the Jews had had a strong connection to the land of Israel for around 1,000 years. Then the Christians said, "Well, if this is important to you, then it must be important to us, because Jesus was one of you guys." And 600 years after that, the Muslims came along and said, "We are here to replace you both. So we are going to take your holy places and turn them into our holy places and just give them a new meaning." So let's sum it all up. Are the Jews the indigenous people of the land of Israel? No, but that's because there is no such thing. The land of Israel is not an island that had native people living on it. The land of Israel is a corridor connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe. It is a corridor that many empires travel along. The Greek, the Romans, the Assyrians, the Mongols, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Muslim Caliphate, the French, but only the Jews and the Crusaders for a short period of time saw this corridor as their homeland. Are the stories in the Bible true? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, and maybe some are and some aren't. That isn't really relevant when it comes to this video. What we know for sure is that the Jews had a kingdom here 2,700 years ago. 2,000-year-old Hebrew texts have been found in Israel, texts that I can now read. How many of you can read and understand 2,000-year-old texts that have been found in your area? Probably not too many of you. The history of the Jews and our connection to the land of Israel is a fascinating, true story. There are more than 20 countries with a cross on their flag, more than 30 with the Muslim crescent. And there is a place for a tiny country with a Star of David on its flag, right there where a Jewish kingdom existed thousands of years ago, even if it bothers some people in the Middle East neighborhood. Please share this video, like, and subscribe.